The photograph showed everything and nothing at the same time. Ethan Brooks, a nobody driver from Queens, holding billionaire CEO Isabella Grant in his arms. The elevator camera captured what looked like an intimate moment between two people from completely different worlds. Within hours, the image exploded across social media. Corporate scandal, power abuse, career destruction. But the truth? The truth was something the internet would never believe. This is the story of one night that changed two lives forever. Not because of what happened, but because of what didn't. Before we dive in, hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The snow fell heavy over Manhattan that February evening, blanketing the city in a silence that felt almost sacred. Inside the warmth of luxury sedans and behind the glowing windows of penthouses, the elite celebrated. Outside, in the cold parking garage beneath the Dominion Hotel, Ethan Brooks sat alone in his company vehicle, watching his breath create small clouds in the frigid air. 32 years old, and this was his life. Driver, father, ghost. He checked his phone for the third time in 10 minutes. The babysitter had sent a photo, his 6-year-old son Marcus asleep on the couch, still clutching the toy ambulance Ethan had found at a thrift store last week. The kid wanted to be a paramedic, said he wanted to help people who were hurt. Ethan smiled at the screen, then dimmed it. The battery was at 15%. He'd forgotten to charge it again. Around him, the underground garage echoed with the sounds of expensive engines and designer heels clicking against concrete. The company's 15th anniversary gala was in full swing 7 floors above. Ethan had driven 3 executives already tonight, all of them too drunk to notice he existed, too important to say thank you. That was fine. Invisible was safe. Invisible paid the bills. He'd been working for Titan Global Technologies for almost 2 years now. The pay was decent, better than driving for the rideshare apps he'd cycled through after Sarah died. The company provided benefits, regular hours, and most importantly, predictability. As a single father, predictability meant everything. His phone buzzed. Text from dispatch. Standing by. May need you for late runs. Ethan typed back a thumbs up and settled deeper into his seat. The coffee in his thermos had gone lukewarm an hour ago, but he drank it anyway. Waste nothing. That was the rule now. Through the garage entrance, he could see the snow accumulating on the street. The forecast had called for 6 inches overnight. He made a mental note to leave early if possible. The subway to Queens would be a nightmare, and Marcus would worry if he was late. The kid worried a lot these days. 4 years old when his mother died. Now 6, and still sleeping with the lights on. Ethan pushed the thought away. Not now. Not here. A group of women in evening gowns rushed past his car, laughing and stumbling in their heels. One of them dropped a clutch purse. Ethan got out, picked it up, called after them. The woman who dropped it barely glanced at him as she snatched it back. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just another invisible moment in an invisible life. He was about to get back in the car when he heard rapid footsteps, someone running. Ethan? Ethan Brooks! He turned to see Jennifer Park, one of the CEO's executive assistants, sprinting toward him in a floor-length silver dress. She was breathing hard, her face flushed with something that looked like panic. Miss Park? What's wrong? She grabbed his arm. I need your help. Right now. Ethan's stomach tightened. In 2 years, he'd maybe spoken to Jennifer twice. Executive assistants didn't run through parking garages looking for drivers unless something had gone very wrong. What happened? It's Ms. Grant, Jennifer said, still catching her breath. She's not well. She asked to go home, but she won't go with anyone else. She specifically asked for you. Ethan blinked. Me? I've never even met Ms. Grant. I know, but she saw you earlier tonight. You helped that server who dropped the tray near the valet entrance. He barely remembered that. Some kid who'd slipped on the ice, glasses and plates everywhere. Ethan had just helped him pick everything up. 30 seconds, maybe? Nothing. Ms. Grant noticed, Jennifer continued, urgency creeping into her voice. And now she's asking for the driver who helped that boy. Please, she won't let anyone else near her. Something in Jennifer's expression made Ethan pause. This wasn't about corporate protocol or professional courtesy. This was fear. Where is she? 7th floor, private lounge. But Ethan, Jennifer lowered her voice. She's in a bad state. Really bad. I've worked for her for 6 years and I've never seen her like this. They took the service elevator. Jennifer was quiet during the ascent, nervously checking her phone. The doors opened to a carpeted hallway lined with abstract art worth more than Ethan's entire apartment building. Soft music drifted from the ballroom at the far end. Sinatra, maybe. The kind of smooth, expensive sound that rich people dance to. Jennifer led him to a door marked Private Lounge and knocked softly. Miss Grant? I brought Ethan. No response. Jennifer hesitated, then opened the door. The lounge was dimly lit, decorated in dark wood and leather. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the snowy Manhattan skyline. And on a leather sofa near the window sat Isabella Grant. Ethan had seen her face in company newsletters, on the cover of Forbes, projected on screens during corporate meetings. Always composed, always powerful. The woman who'd built Titan Global from a garage startup to a $15 billion empire in 12 years. Brilliant, untouchable, legendary. But the woman on that sofa looked nothing like the photographs. Her emerald evening gown was wrinkled and twisted awkwardly. Mascara had run in dark streaks down her cheeks. Her carefully styled hair had fallen loose around her shoulders. She sat with her knees pulled up slightly, arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. Isabella Grant looked completely, utterly broken. Ms. Grant? Jennifer approached carefully, like someone approaching a wounded animal. I brought... Leave us. Isabella's voice was quiet but absolute. Jennifer shot Ethan an uncertain look. It's okay, he said softly. Jennifer nodded and slipped out, closing the door behind her. For a long moment, Ethan stood there in the doorway of this private lounge, this woman's private crisis, unsure what he was supposed to do. He was a driver. He picked people up and dropped them off. He didn't do whatever this was. You're the one who helped the server, Isabella said. Not a question, a statement. Yes, ma'am. Why? The question caught him off guard. Why what? Why did you help him? You're not responsible for him. It wasn't your job. Ethan considered that. Didn't need to be my job. He needed help. Isabella finally turned to look at him. Even through the smeared makeup and exhaustion, her eyes were striking, intelligent, sharp, but right now filled with something that looked like desperation. Can you take me home? Of course, that's what I do. No. She stood slowly, unsteady on her feet. I mean, will you take me home? Not as my employee, as someone who just helps people who need it. Ethan understood then. She wasn't asking for a driver. She was asking for someone she could trust in a moment when she couldn't trust anyone else. Yes, he said simply. Let me get the car. Wait. She took a step and stumbled. Ethan moved quickly, catching her arm before she fell. She was lighter than he expected, more fragile. I don't think I can walk through the hotel. They'll see me. Service elevator goes straight to the garage. No one will see you. You know all the secret exits? Part of the job. Right. She almost smiled. Almost. The invisible people always know the invisible routes. Ethan didn't respond to that. He just offered his arm. Can you walk? I think so. They moved slowly into the hallway. Isabella leaned against him more heavily than she probably realized. Ethan could smell expensive perfume mixed with champagne and something else, the sharp scent of someone who'd been crying for a long time. The service elevator was mercifully empty. As the doors closed, Isabella slumped against the wall. Do you know who I am? She asked. Yes, ma'am. And you're not afraid? Afraid of what? Of this. Of being seen with me like this. Of what people might think or say. Ethan pressed the button for the parking level. I'm a single dad who drives people for a living. I stopped worrying about what people think a long time ago. Something flickered in her expression, surprise maybe, or relief. What's your name? Ethan Brooks? How old is your child, Ethan Brooks? 6, son Marcus. What happened to his mother? The question was too personal for a stranger, too intimate for a boss. But somehow, In the confined space of that descending elevator, it didn't feel invasive. It felt like two people trading truths. "Cancer," Ethan said. 4 years ago. "I'm sorry." "Me too." The elevator chimed. The doors opened to the cold garage. Ethan's black sedan was parked near the entrance. He helped Isabella into the back seat, then paused. "You want me to take you to your home address on file?" "Yes, the penthouse. Hudson Yards." Of course, the penthouse. Where else would a billionaire CEO live? Ethan got behind the wheel and started the engine. The heater took a moment to kick in. He adjusted the rearview mirror and caught a glimpse of Isabella in the back seat. She was staring out the window at the falling snow. "Miss Grant, can I ask you something?" "You just did." "Fair. Can I ask you something else?" "Go ahead." "Are you safe? Do I need to take you to a hospital?" She was quiet for a moment. "No, I'm not hurt, not physically." "Okay." He pulled out of the garage and into the snowy streets. Manhattan at night in winter was always beautiful, but tonight it felt particularly surreal, like they were driving through a snow globe, sealed off from the real world. They drove in silence for several minutes. Ethan kept checking the mirror, watching her, making sure she was okay. Finally, Isabella spoke. "My husband left me today." Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Ex-husband, technically. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago, but today he called to tell me he's getting remarried, to someone I introduced him to. One of my own board members. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "The gala tonight was supposed to be a celebration," Isabella continued, her voice hollow. 15 years of building this company. 15 years of sacrifices and all-nighters and missed birthdays and canceled vacations. All so I could build something that mattered. "It does matter," Ethan said quietly. "Does it?" "I stood on that stage tonight, gave a speech to 700 people about vision and persistence and the power of community, and the whole time, all I could think was, I have no one. I built an empire and somehow became completely alone." The windshield wipers swept back and forth, clearing snow that immediately returned. "After the speech, I went to that lounge because I couldn't breathe, couldn't keep smiling, couldn't keep pretending. And then I saw you through the window, watched you help that server without even thinking about it. No cameras, no audience, just someone being kind because that's who they are." She paused. "I realized I couldn't remember the last time someone did something for me without wanting something in return." Ethan navigated through a yellow light. "For what it's worth, Ms. Grant, I think being alone and being lonely are different things. You can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely, or you can be by yourself and feel completely whole. Which one are you?" "Honestly, both. Depends on the day." Isabella leaned forward slightly. "You're a single father. You work nights. You probably barely sleep. When do you have time to feel whole?" "When I watch my son sleeping. When he laughs at something stupid. When he tells me about his day at school like it's the most important news in the world. Those moments. That's when I feel whole. It sounds simple. It is simple. Doesn't mean it's easy." They crossed into Hudson Yards. The towers rose around them like glass giants, their windows glowing against the dark sky. Isabella directed him to the entrance of one of the most exclusive buildings in Manhattan. "Service entrances around back," she said. "No doorman." Ethan followed her directions and pulled into a private garage beneath the building. The space was nearly empty, just a few luxury cars scattered across the floor. He parked and turned off the engine. "I should walk you up," he said. "Make sure you get inside, okay?" "You don't have to." "I know." He got out and opened her door. Isabella took his offered hand and stood slowly. For a moment they were very close in the dim garage. Ethan could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight she carried. "Thank you," she said, "for not treating me like glass. Or like a goddess. Just like a person having a very bad night. Everyone has bad nights." They took a private elevator to the 42nd floor. The doors opened directly into Isabella's penthouse. Ethan stepped inside and stopped. He'd driven wealthy people for 2 years. He'd seen luxury. But this was something else entirely. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, offering 360-degree views of Manhattan and the Hudson River. The interior was modern and minimal. white marble floors, designer furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than he'd earn in a lifetime. Everything was perfect. Everything was beautiful, and everything felt completely empty. "Welcome to the loneliest place in New York," Isabella said softly. She walked to the kitchen, an enormous space with marble countertops and commercial-grade appliances, and opened the refrigerator. It was nearly empty except for bottled water and what looked like takeout containers. "I have a chef who stocks it twice a week," she said, pulling out a water bottle. "But I'm never here to eat any of it." Ethan watched as she moved to the living room and collapsed onto a white leather sofa. She kicked off her heels and tucked her feet beneath her, suddenly looking much younger than her 36 years. "Can I get you anything?" Ethan asked. "There's aspirin in the bathroom cabinet, second door on the left." He found the bathroom, more marble, a shower that could fit 6 people, a bathtub overlooking the river. The medicine cabinet held exactly what she'd said: aspirin, along with prescription bottles he didn't read the labels of. When he returned, Isabella had pulled a blanket around herself and was staring out at the city. He set the aspirin and water on the coffee table. "You should probably eat something," he said. "Not hungry." "Doesn't matter, you need food in your system." She turned to look at him, curious. "Are you always this bossy?" "Only when I'm in dad mode." That got a small smile. "Fine. There might be crackers in the pantry." Ethan found a box of water crackers and brought them over. Isabella ate a few mechanically, washing them down with water. "Better?" "Marginally." Ethan checked his phone. Almost midnight. The babysitter would charge extra after 12, and he still had to subway back to Queens. "I should go," he said. "Will you be okay?" Isabella looked up at him, and for a moment her carefully maintained composure cracked completely. "Please don't go," she whispered. "Not yet." Every instinct told him to leave. This was dangerous territory, being alone with the CEO of his company in her home when she was vulnerable. Nothing good could come from this. But then he thought about Marcus. About the nights after Sarah died when he would wake up crying, not from nightmares but from the crushing realization that she was never coming back. About how desperately he'd needed someone, anyone, to just sit with him in the darkness and make him feel less alone. "Okay," Ethan said quietly. "I'll stay." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. But I'm sleeping in a different room and keeping the door open." "Why?" "Because I have a 6-year-old son who's going to ask me where I was tonight, and I want to be able to look him in the eye and tell him the truth." Isabella nodded slowly. "You're a good father." "I'm trying to be." She directed him to a guest room down the hall, another space of white walls and minimal furniture that felt more like a hotel than a home. Ethan took off his jacket but left his shoes on. Through the open door, he could see Isabella still sitting on the couch, wrapped in her blanket, staring at nothing. "Ms. Grant?" "Isabella. If you're going to spend the night in my apartment, you should probably use my first name." "Isabella, what happened tonight, the breakdown, asking me to stay, this isn't going to be a problem on Monday, is it?" She turned to look at him. "Are you worried I'll fire you?" "I'm worried you'll feel embarrassed, that you'll want to eliminate the reminder." "Is that what usually happens when powerful people show weakness?" "In my experience, yes." Isabella was quiet for a long moment. "I won't fire you, Ethan, and I won't be embarrassed. What happened tonight was human. We're allowed to be human sometimes." "Okay. Okay." She turned back to the window. Ethan watched her for another moment, then retreated to the guest room. He lay down on top of the covers, still fully dressed, and set his phone alarm for 5 a.m. Through the doorway, he could hear the city humming, the distant sound of traffic, the wind against the windows, the almost imperceptible creaking of a building that touched the clouds. And very faintly, he could hear Isabella crying. Ethan closed his eyes and waited for morning. He woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, Ethan had no idea where he was. Then it came rushing back. The gala, Isabella, the penthouse. He checked his phone. 6:15 a.m. His alarm hadn't gone off, or rather, he'd somehow slept through it. "Damn it," he muttered, jumping up. He found Isabella in the kitchen, already dressed in casual clothes, jeans and a simple sweater, standing at an expensive espresso machine. She looked completely different from the broken woman of last night. Composed. Controlled. every hair in place. "Good morning," she said calmly. "I'm sorry. I overslept. I should have left already." "You look like you needed the sleep." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, suddenly very aware that he was still wearing yesterday's wrinkled clothes in the penthouse of one of the most powerful women in Manhattan. "Coffee?" Isabella offered. "I really should go." "One cup won't hurt." She poured without waiting for an answer and handed him a pristine white mug. Ethan took it reflexively. They stood there in the bright kitchen, the morning sun making everything too clear, too real. Isabella set down her own cup and looked at him directly. "Last night," she said carefully, "after you brought me here, after I fell asleep on the couch, did anything happen?" The question hung in the air between them. Ethan met her gaze steadily. "I helped you get home. Got you water and aspirin and crackers. You asked me to stay, so I stayed in the guest room with the door open. That's all. You didn't... No. Even though I was... No." Isabella's shoulders relaxed almost imperceptibly. "Most men wouldn't have been so careful. I'm not most men." "Why not?" Ethan set down his coffee. "Because I'm raising a son, and every single day I think about the kind of man I want him to become. The kind of man who helps people without expecting something in return. Who does the right thing even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching." "That's why you stayed last night? For your son?" "I stayed because you needed someone, and because I remember what it feels like to fall apart and have no one to catch you." Isabella looked away, blinking rapidly. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Thank you. For your integrity, and for not making this more complicated than it needed to be. You're welcome. I should let you get home. Your son must be worried." "The babysitter's good, but yeah, I need to get back before he wakes up." Ethan moved toward the door, but Isabella stopped him. "Ethan, what you said last night about being alone versus being lonely, I've been thinking about it. I think I've been confusing the two for a long time. It's an easy mistake to make." "Is it? Or is it just what we tell ourselves so we don't have to deal with the real problem?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Isabella smiled faintly. "Go home to your son. And thank you. For everything. Take care of yourself." "I'll try." Ethan left the penthouse and took the elevator down to the lobby. As he walked out into the cold morning, pulling his jacket tight against the wind, he felt a strange sense of displacement, like he'd stepped out of one reality and back into another. The subway ride back to Queens was crowded with early morning commuters, people heading to jobs that would never make them rich, living lives that would never make headlines. People like him. Invisible people. He got home at 7:30. The babysitter was half asleep on the couch, and Marcus was still in bed. Ethan paid her extra for the late night and the early morning, then watched her leave. Then he stood in his small living room, so different from Isabella's penthouse, cluttered with toys and laundry and the evidence of actual life, and exhaled slowly. He'd done the right thing. He was sure of that. But as he checked his phone and saw 0 messages from work, 0 acknowledgement that anything unusual had happened, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that last night had been some kind of test. He just had no idea whether he'd passed or failed. Marcus was already awake when Ethan quietly opened the bedroom door. The 6-year-old sat cross-legged on his narrow bed, still in his dinosaur pajamas, lining up toy cars in precise rows across his blanket. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said softly. "You're up early." Marcus looked up, his face brightening immediately. "Dad, Miss Rachel said you had to work really late. Did you drive important people?" Ethan sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. "Yeah, I did. But I'm here now. Can we have pancakes?" "Absolutely. Go brush your teeth first." Marcus scrambled off the bed and disappeared into the bathroom. Ethan sat there for a moment, listening to the sound of running water and his son humming tunelessly. These ordinary morning sounds had become sacred to him after Sarah died. Every normal day felt like a gift he hadn't earned. He made pancakes from a box mix while Marcus chattered about a game they'd played at school, something involving frogs and lily pads that Ethan couldn't quite follow. He nodded in the right places, asked the right questions, and tried not to think about Isabella Grant sitting alone in her empty penthouse. Different worlds. That's what they were. Last night had been an aberration. A moment when two completely separate realities had briefly touched. By Monday morning, everything would return to normal. Except it didn't. Monday started like any other day. Ethan dropped Marcus at school, kissed his forehead, reminded him to be kind to the other kids. Then he took the subway into Manhattan, grabbed coffee from the same cart he always did, and arrived at the Titan Global garage at 8:30 a.m. His supervisor, Dave Mitchell, was waiting by the dispatch desk with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. "Brooks, my office. Now." Ethan's stomach tightened. Dave only used that tone when something was seriously wrong. The office was a small glass box overlooking the garage floor. Dave closed the door and gestured to a chair. Ethan remained standing. "Want to tell me what the hell happened Saturday night?" Dave asked. "I drove Ms. Grant home from the gala. She wasn't feeling well." "That's it?" "That's it." Dave pulled out his phone and turned it toward Ethan. The screen showed a photograph, grainy, clearly from a security camera. It showed Ethan in the hotel elevator, arms around Isabella, holding her up while she leaned heavily against him. Out of context, it looked intimate. Wrong. "Where did you get that?" Ethan asked quietly. "It's making the rounds. Started circulating yesterday. Security team's trying to figure out who leaked it, but the damage is done." "There's nothing to damage. I helped her to the car. She was sick. That's what happened." "I believe you," Dave said. "But it doesn't matter what I believe. HR wants to talk to you. Right now." The Human Resources Department occupied the entire 14th floor of the Titan Global Tower. Ethan had never been up here before. The hallways were carpeted in corporate gray, lined with motivational posters about teamwork and innovation. He was led to a conference room where two people waited: Karen Chen, the senior HR director, and a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Marcus Webb from legal. Not a good sign. "Mr. Brooks, thank you for coming," Karen began, her voice professionally neutral. "We need to discuss the events of Saturday evening. I already explained to my supervisor, we understand you drove Ms. Grant home from the gala. What we need clarity on is what happened after that." Ethan felt his jaw tighten. "I helped her inside, made sure she was safe, then I left." "What time did you leave?" "The next morning, around 6:30. The lawyer made a note. Karen's expression didn't change. "So you spent the night in Ms. Grant's residence?" "In a guest room. She asked me to stay because she didn't want to be alone. Nothing inappropriate happened." "Mr. Brooks, you understand how this looks." "How what looks?" "I did my job. I helped someone who needed help." Karen leaned forward slightly. "A junior employee spending the night in the CEO's private residence creates a significant liability for this company. Regardless of what did or didn't happen, the optics are problematic." "Optics," Ethan repeated the word slowly. "Is that what we're calling basic human decency now?" "We're calling it a potential scandal," the lawyer said. "The photograph is already circulating internally. It's only a matter of time before it reaches social media. We need to get ahead of this." "Get ahead of what? The truth?" "The truth doesn't matter if no one believes it," Karen said flatly. "And right now we have an image of you in a compromising position with the CEO. We have confirmation you spent the night in her home. Those are facts. Everything else is narrative." Ethan's hands clenched at his sides. "So what are you saying?" "We're placing you on administrative leave pending a full investigation. You'll continue to receive pay, but you cannot work any shifts or enter company property during this period. You're suspending me for helping someone. We're protecting all parties involved while we determine what actually occurred." "I just told you what occurred." The lawyer stood. "Mr. Brooks, I strongly advise you to cooperate with this process. The alternative is termination for violation of the professional conduct clause in your employment contract." Ethan stared at him. "What violation?" "Engaging in behavior that creates the appearance of impropriety with a superior. It's a standard clause." "The appearance, not the reality. The appearance." "Welcome to corporate America," Karen said, not unkindly. "We'll be in touch within the week. Until then, please surrender your access badge and company vehicle keys." Ethan walked out of that building in a daze. He'd entered it as an employee. He left it as a liability. The subway ride back to Queens felt surreal. Around him, people scrolled through phones, read newspapers, lived their normal Monday lives. Ethan stared at his own reflection in the dark window and tried to process what had just happened. He'd done the right thing. He was certain of that. So why did it feel like he was being punished? His phone buzzed. Text from Dave. Sorry, man. Not my call. Hang in there. Then another text. This one from a coworker in dispatch. Bro, is it true? And another, did you really? Ethan turned off his phone. When he got home, he sat on the couch in his empty apartment and tried to figure out what he was going to tell Marcus. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that doing something kind can sometimes destroy your life? He didn't have an answer. By Tuesday morning, the photograph had escaped the company's internal channels. Someone had posted it to a gossip forum, then Twitter, then Reddit. The caption varied, but the implication was always the same. Billionaire CEO caught in scandal with her driver. Ethan watched his phone light up with notifications. Former coworkers texting questions. People he barely knew suddenly wanting to reconnect. Everyone wanted the story. He ignored all of it. On Wednesday, a journalist somehow got his number. Mr. Brooks, I'm writing a piece about power dynamics in corporate America. I'd love to get your side of the story. Ethan hung up without responding. On Thursday, Marcus came home from school unusually quiet. What's wrong? Ethan asked. Tyler's mom said you got fired. Did you get fired, Dad? Ethan knelt down so they were eye level. I didn't get fired. I'm just taking some time off work while they figure some stuff out. What stuff? How do you explain corporate politics to a 6-year-old? Grown-up stuff. It's complicated. Is it because you helped that lady? Ethan froze. What? Miss Rachel told me you had to help someone who was sick. She said that's why you had to stay out so late. Did you get in trouble for helping? Out of the mouths of children, Ethan thought. The absolute clarity of it. Yeah, buddy, I guess I did. Marcus frowned, processing this. Then he wrapped his small arms around Ethan's neck. That's not fair. No, Ethan agreed quietly. It's really not. Friday afternoon, Ethan's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. He almost didn't answer, expecting another journalist, but something made him pick up. Mr. Brooks, this is Jennifer Park, Ms. Grant's assistant. Ethan's heart rate picked up. Hi. Ms. Grant would like to speak with you. Are you available tomorrow, Saturday morning? Why? She didn't say, but she was very specific that it needed to be in person. Ethan closed his eyes. Every instinct screamed at him to say no. Meeting with Isabella again would only make things worse, give the rumors more fuel, create more problems. But he also remembered the broken woman on that couch, the vulnerability in her eyes. Where? He asked. Her office. 10 a.m. I'll have your name added to the security list. The Titan Global Tower on a Saturday morning was eerily quiet. Ethan signed in at the lobby desk, rode the elevator to the executive floor, and was met by Jennifer in the hallway. Thank you for coming, she said. She's in her office. Jennifer, what's this about? It's better if she tells you herself. She led him to a set of double doors at the end of the hall, knocked twice, then opened them. Isabella's office was exactly what Ethan expected. Massive windows, minimalist furniture, walls lined with awards and framed magazine covers. But what surprised him was Isabella herself. She stood by the window wearing jeans and a simple blouse instead of her usual power suits. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked almost normal. Thank you, Jennifer, Isabella said. Close the door, please. Jennifer left them alone. Isabella turned to face Ethan fully. Thank you for coming. Your assistant didn't really give me much choice. You could have said no. Could I? Isabella smiled faintly. Fair point. Sit down, please. Ethan remained standing. With all due respect, Ms. Grant, I don't think us being alone together is a good idea right now. Because of the photograph. Because of everything. I know about the investigation, Isabella said quietly. I know HR suspended you. I know what people are saying. Then you know why I shouldn't be here. Ethan, sit down. I'm not asking as your boss. I'm asking as someone who owes you an apology. That got his attention. Slowly, he lowered himself into one of the chairs facing her desk. Isabella sat across from him, not behind the desk, but in the other guest chair. Equal footing. I didn't know about the photograph until Monday, she began. Jennifer showed it to me after HR had already started their investigation. When I saw it, I realized what it must look like. what conclusions people would draw. It's fine. It's not fine. You did nothing wrong. You were professional and kind and respectful. And now you're being punished for it because I wasn't careful enough. Ethan shook his head. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. I should have anticipated this, should have been more aware of the optics, as HR so delicately puts it. But I was so focused on my own pain that I didn't think about what I was asking you to risk. You asked me to stay. That's all. I made the choice. A choice that's now destroying your reputation. My reputation will survive. Isabella leaned forward, her eyes intense. Will it? Have you seen what they're saying online, the theories they're spinning? They're painting you as either a predator or a gold digger, neither of which is remotely true. Ethan had seen it. Late at night, when he couldn't sleep, he'd made the mistake of reading the comments, the assumptions, the judgment from strangers who knew nothing about him or what actually happened. I can handle it, he said. You shouldn't have to. This is my mess. I'm going to fix it. How? Isabella stood and walked back to the window. From this height, Manhattan spread out below like a circuit board, all glass and steel and controlled chaos. I've scheduled an all-company meeting for Monday morning, she said. I'm going to address the rumors directly, show them the full security footage from that night, tell them exactly what happened and why you deserve their respect, not their judgment. Ethan felt his stomach drop. No. Excuse me? Don't do that. Don't make a spectacle out of this. I'm not making a spectacle. I'm telling the truth. You're putting a target on both our backs. Right now, this is internal gossip. You address it publicly. It becomes a story. Media picks it up. Then it's not just company rumors anymore. It's national news. Isabella turned to look at him. So, your solution is what? Let them keep believing the worst? My solution is to let it die naturally. Stop feeding it oxygen. Eventually, people will move on to the next scandal. And in the meantime, you stay suspended? Your career stalled because of me? It's temporary. It's not fair. No, Ethan agreed, but life rarely is. They stood there in silence, on opposite sides of her massive office, separated by more than just physical distance. Finally, Isabella spoke again, her voice softer. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. Why did you really stay that night? You said it was because I needed someone, but I think there's more to it than that. Ethan considered lying, deflecting, but something about the way she asked, genuinely curious, not interrogating, made him answer honestly. After my wife died, I spent about 6 months in a very dark place. Not suicidal, just hollow. I'd go through the motions for Marcus during the day, but at night when he was asleep, I'd just sit in the dark and feel nothing. Complete emptiness. He paused, remembering. One night, my neighbor, this old woman I'd maybe talked to twice, knocked on my door at 2 a.m, said she heard me crying through the walls. I told her I was fine, tried to close the door, but she just pushed past me, sat down on my couch and started talking. Told me about her husband who died 20 years ago. About her kids who never call. About loneliness and grief and how sometimes you just need another human being to sit with you in the darkness. Isabella listened without interrupting. She stayed until sunrise, Ethan continued. Never gave me advice. Never tried to fix anything. Just sat there. And somehow, that made all the difference. I realized I wasn't drowning alone. Someone saw me. Actually saw me. He met Isabella's eyes. When you asked me to stay, I saw that same look in your eyes. That desperate need to not be alone with your pain. So I stayed. Because someone did that for me once, and it saved me. Isabella's composure cracked slightly. She looked away, blinking rapidly. What was your neighbor's name? She asked. Mrs. Chen. She died last year. Did you ever thank her? Every chance I got. Brought her groceries, fixed things in her apartment, drove her to doctor's appointments. Small things, but she always said they mattered. They did matter. Yeah, they did. Isabella walked over to her desk and picked up a folder. I had Jennifer pull your employment file. Did you know you've never been late? Never called in sick? Your performance reviews are immaculate. Your supervisor calls you the most reliable driver they've ever had. I need this job. I show up. It's more than that. You care about doing things right, about treating people with dignity, even when those people are drunk executives who don't remember your name. Ethan shrugged. My son is watching. Everything I do, he's watching. I want him to see someone who keeps his word, who shows up even when it's hard. You're a good father. I'm trying to be. Isabella set down the folder. I'm going to end the investigation. I'll tell HR there's nothing to investigate. You'll be reinstated by Monday. And the rumors? I'll address them without making a spectacle. A simple email to staff clarifying what happened. Professional, factual. Then we move on. Will we? Or will this just keep haunting both of us? I don't know, Isabella admitted. But I do know that doing nothing isn't an option. Not when an innocent person is suffering because of me. Ethan stood. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you need to think carefully about this. You're the CEO. Your reputation affects the entire company, shareholders, employees, the stock price. Are you willing to risk all of that to defend a driver? Yes. Well, the answer came without hesitation. Why? Ethan asked. Isabella walked around the desk until she stood directly in front of him. Because you risked your job to help me. Because you showed me more respect and kindness in one night than most people in my life have shown me in years. And because the measure of a company isn't its profits or market share. It's how it treats people when things get complicated. She extended her hand. Thank you, Ethan Brooks, for your integrity. And for reminding me what actually matters. Ethan shook her hand. Her grip was firm, certain. I hope you know what you're doing, he said. So do I. That Sunday evening, Ethan's phone buzzed with an email notification. Company-wide message from Isabella Grant sent to all 15,000 Titan Global employees. He opened it. Subject: clarification regarding recent rumors. To all Titan Global team members, it has come to my attention that a photograph from our anniversary gala has been circulating internally, accompanied by speculation and rumor. I want to address this directly. On the evening of February 10th, I experienced a personal health issue and required assistance getting home safely. Ethan Brooks, one of our drivers, helped me to my vehicle and ensured I arrived home without incident. His actions were completely professional and appropriate. Mr. Brooks has been a model employee for 2 years. He is reliable, trustworthy, and exemplifies the values we claim to hold as a company. The fact that his kindness has been met with suspicion and judgment is unacceptable. I expect all employees to treat Mr. Brooks with the respect he deserves. Any further spread of rumors or speculation will be considered a violation of our workplace conduct policy. We are better than gossip. We are better than tearing down good people based on incomplete information. Let's act like it. Isabella Grant, CEO, Titan Global Technologies. Ethan read it twice. It was direct, honest, and probably career suicide for both of them. He waited for his phone to explode with messages. Instead, there was silence. Monday morning, Ethan received a call from HR. The investigation was concluded. He was cleared to return to work immediately. Dave would have his schedule ready. No apology. No acknowledgement of the damage done. Just bureaucratic efficiency. When Ethan arrived at the garage that afternoon for his first shift back, he expected hostility. Awkward stares, whispered comments. Instead, Dave clapped him on the shoulder. Good to have you back, man. That's it? No questions? Boss lady made it pretty clear. You're good in my book. The other drivers were more reserved, but not hostile. A few nodded. One guy named Marcus, a different Marcus, ironically, said, Rough week, huh? Yeah. Well, you're here now. That's what matters. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't vindication, but it was something. Ethan took his first fare that afternoon, a VP heading to a dinner meeting in the financial district. The man got in the car without looking up from his phone, gave an address, and never said another word the entire ride. Back to invisible. Back to normal. Except it wasn't quite normal anymore. Over the next few weeks, Ethan noticed small changes. Executives who'd never acknowledged him before would nod when they got in his car. A few even said thank you. Jennifer Park started texting him occasionally. Nothing personal, just checking in, making sure he was okay. And twice, late at night, he received messages from Isabella herself. The first one came 3 days after he returned to work. How are you holding up? Ethan stared at the message for a long time before responding. I'm okay. You? Surviving. Thank you for asking. The second message came a week later. Marcus's birthday is coming up, right? Jennifer mentioned it. I hope you both have a wonderful day. Ethan was surprised she remembered. Even more surprised she cared. He didn't respond to that one, because the truth was, he didn't know how to navigate whatever this was becoming. They weren't friends. They certainly weren't equals. But they also weren't just CEO and driver anymore. They were two people who'd seen each other at their lowest and somehow hadn't looked away. And that was more complicated than any rumor. Marcus's 7th birthday fell on a Saturday in late March. Ethan had planned a small party, just a few kids from school, pizza, and a cake from the grocery store bakery. Nothing fancy. But Marcus had been excited about it for weeks. That morning, a delivery arrived at their apartment. A massive box addressed to Marcus Brooks. "Dad, what is it?" Marcus practically vibrated with excitement. Ethan opened it carefully. Inside was a remote-controlled ambulance, the fancy kind with working lights and sounds and actual medical equipment in the back. The kind that cost $300 at the toy store where Ethan had taken Marcus to look but not touch. There was a card for a future paramedic who will help a lot of people. Happy birthday. IG. Marcus's eyes went wide. Is this the one? The one from the store? Looks like it. Who sent it? Ethan hesitated. A friend. You have rich friends? Apparently. Marcus was already tearing open the packaging, too excited to ask more questions. Ethan stood there holding the card, trying to figure out what to feel. Gratitude, definitely. His son was happy. That mattered more than anything. But also discomfort. This crossed a line. This wasn't professional courtesy. This was personal. That evening, after all the kids had gone home and Marcus was asleep clutching his new ambulance, Ethan sent a text. The gift was too much, but thank you. He loves it. Isabella's response came within minutes. I'm glad. Every kid deserves to feel special on their birthday. How did you even know what he wanted? You mentioned it once, the day we met. You said he wanted to be a paramedic. I remembered. Ethan stared at his phone. She'd remembered a throwaway comment from a conversation 6 weeks ago. Why are you doing this? He typed. The response took longer this time. Because you did something kind for me when you didn't have to. And because I think maybe we're more similar than either of us realized. We're nothing alike, aren't we? Two people raising ourselves, working hard, trying to do right by the people who depend on us, feeling alone even when we're surrounded by others. Ethan sat on his worn couch in his small apartment and tried to find a way to argue with that. He couldn't. I don't know what this is, he finally typed, but I don't think it's a good idea. What isn't? Whatever we're doing, these messages, the gift, all of it, we're from different worlds, you know that, different circumstances. Not different worlds. That's exactly what different worlds means. Then maybe it's time we stop pretending that matters. Ethan deleted and retyped his response 3 times before finally sending, It does matter. It always matters. Isabella didn't respond after that. Ethan told himself he was relieved. He was lying. 2 months passed without another word between them. Ethan drove executives to meetings and galas and airport terminals. He picked Marcus up from school. He paid bills and grocery shopped and lived the same invisible life he'd always lived. The photograph faded from company gossip, replaced by new scandals and fresh rumors. Life moved on the way it always does. But something had shifted inside him that he couldn't quite name. It was late May when everything changed again. Ethan was finishing his shift, parked in the garage, and filling out his mileage log when his phone rang. Jennifer Park. Ethan, I need a favor. A big one. He'd learned to be wary of Jennifer's favors. What kind of favor? Ms. Grant has a dinner meeting tonight at Per Se. Her regular driver called in sick, and the backup is stuck in traffic from an accident on the FDR. She needs someone in 20 minutes. Call dispatch. They'll send someone. She asked for you specifically. Ethan closed his eyes. Jennifer, I know this is complicated, but she's meeting with 3 board members who are already looking for reasons to push her out. She can't be late. She can't show up rattled. Please. There was real desperation in Jennifer's voice. Ethan checked his watch. Marcus was at a friend's house for a sleepover. He had nowhere he needed to be. Fine. 20 minutes. Send me the address. You're a lifesaver. I'm an idiot, Ethan muttered, but Jennifer had already hung up. He pulled up to the Time Warner Center 15 minutes later. Isabella was waiting outside, pacing in front of the building in a charcoal business suit, checking her phone every few seconds. When she saw Ethan's car, relief crossed her face. She got in the back seat without a word. Ethan pulled into traffic. Per se, got it. Thank you for doing this. Your assistant didn't give me much choice. She's persuasive. That's one word for it. They drove in silence for a few blocks. The evening traffic was typical Manhattan chaos, taxis cutting each other off, pedestrians jaywalking, delivery trucks blocking entire lanes. Ethan navigated it all with practiced ease. Finally, Isabella spoke. I wasn't sure you'd come. Jennifer made it sound urgent. It is. This dinner is important. Then you should be focused on that, not making small talk with your driver. Is that all you are? My driver? Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. What else would I be? Isabella leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet. I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out for 2 months. There's nothing to figure out. You're the CEO. I drive cars. That's the beginning and end of it. Is it? Because I don't send birthday gifts to all my drivers. And I don't think about all of them when I'm having a particularly difficult day, wondering if they'd understand what I'm going through. Ethan's jaw clenched. You need to stop. Stop what? This. Whatever this is, these messages, these requests, asking for me specifically, all of it. Why? Because it's not fair to either of us. Fair, Isabella repeated softly. When has any of this been fair? They arrived at the Time Warner Center. Ethan pulled up to the valet area but didn't immediately stop. You want to know what's not fair? He said, his voice harder than he intended. I help you one time. One single time. And it nearly cost me my career, my reputation, the respect of my coworkers. All because people like us aren't supposed to be in the same room together unless I'm opening your door. People like us. Yes, people like us. You live in a 42nd floor penthouse. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens that I share with my 6-year-old son. You run a $15 billion company. I drive a car. Those aren't small differences. They're everything. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. You're right. They are everything. In the world's eyes, we have nothing in common, nothing that should matter. She opened her door but didn't get out. But here's what I've learned in 2 months of trying to forget about you, Ethan Brooks. The world's eyes don't see what actually matters. They see money and power and status. They don't see two people who understand what it means to be completely alone in a crowd. They don't see kindness or integrity or the courage it takes to do the right thing when it costs you everything. She stepped out of the car, then leaned back in. I have to go to this dinner now and smile at men who want to destroy everything I've built. I'll sit there for 3 hours and play politics and pretend I'm not exhausted down to my bones. And the whole time, I'll be thinking about the one person who saw me at my worst and didn't run away. She closed the door and walked toward the entrance without looking back. Ethan sat there for a full minute before pulling away. His phone buzzed 3 hours later. Text from Jennifer. Can you pick her up? Same location. Ethan stared at the message. Every rational part of his brain said to decline. To tell Jennifer to call another driver. To maintain the distance he'd tried so hard to establish. He drove back to the Time Warner Center. Isabella emerged at 10:40 p.m. looking exhausted. She got in the car, kicked off her heels, and let her head fall back against the seat. Home? Ethan asked. Please. They drove in silence through the nighttime streets. Manhattan looked different at this hour, softer somehow, the harsh edges smoothed by darkness and streetlights. How was the dinner? Ethan finally asked. Brutal. They want me out. Think I'm too soft. Too focused on employee welfare instead of shareholder value. Are you? Probably. I approved a new parental leave policy last month. 4 months paid for any parent, regardless of gender. The board called it fiscally irresponsible. What did you call it? Human decency. Ethan smiled despite himself. Sounds about right. They threatened a vote of no confidence if I don't reverse it. Will you? Isabella looked out the window at the passing city. No. I'd rather lose my position than become the kind of CEO who treats people like line items on a spreadsheet. Even if it means losing everything you built? Especially then. What's the point of building something if it stops meaning anything? They reached her building. Ethan pulled into the garage and turned off the engine. Can I ask you something? Isabella said. You're going to anyway. Why did you come back tonight? Jennifer said you hesitated when she called. Ethan didn't answer right away. He stared through the windshield at the concrete wall of the parking garage, trying to find words for something he didn't fully understand himself. Because I lied earlier, he finally said. When I said you were just the CEO and I was just the driver, that stopped being true the night I stayed with you. Maybe it was never true. Then what are we? I don't know, but I think we're both smart enough to know that whatever this is, it can't go anywhere good. Isabella reached for the door handle, then stopped. What if I don't care about good anymore? What if I just care about real? She got out before Ethan could respond. He watched her walk to the elevator, her heels dangling from one hand, moving like someone carrying a weight she'd been holding too long. Then he drove home to his empty apartment and lay awake until morning, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince himself he'd done the right thing. The next few weeks were torture. Ethan saw Isabella exactly 3 times, twice in passing when he was dropping off other executives, once when she walked through their garage heading to her private parking space. Each time, their eyes met for a fraction of a second before one or both of them looked away. Professional, distant, proper. It felt like suffocating. Marcus noticed something was wrong. Kids always do. You're sad again, he said one night at dinner, pushing his chicken nuggets around his plate. Like after Mom died. I'm not sad, buddy, just tired. That's what you said then, too. Ethan set down his fork. I'm okay. I promise. Is it the lady? What lady? The one who sent me the ambulance. You got all weird after she sent it. Out of the mouths of children, Ethan thought for the second time in as many months. The absolute clarity. It's complicated. Do you like her? It's not about liking someone. Sometimes grown-ups have situations that don't have easy answers. Marcus considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old can muster. Miss Rachel says when things are complicated, you should just tell the truth. That makes it less complicated. Miss Rachel is very smart. So are you going to tell the truth? Ethan looked at his son, this small person who'd survived losing his mother, who worried about his father's happiness, who still believed the world could be simple if people just tried. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. I think maybe I should. But before he could figure out what truth to tell, the world made the decision for him. It was a Wednesday afternoon in late June when Jennifer called. Ethan, I need you to come to the office right now. I'm not on shift until 6. This isn't about a shift. Just come, please. The urgency in her voice killed any argument. Ethan called the babysitter, threw on decent clothes, and took the subway into Manhattan. Jennifer met him in the lobby, looking genuinely shaken. What's going on? Ethan asked. The board voted this morning. They removed Isabella as CEO. The words didn't make sense at first. What? They claimed she was making reckless financial decisions, used the parental leave policy as evidence, said she'd lost sight of the company's core mission. They voted 8-4 to remove her effective immediately. Ethan felt like he'd been punched. Can they do that? The board has that power, yes. She's technically still on the board herself, but she can't serve as CEO anymore. Where is she? Her office. She's packing. Security is making her leave by end of day. Ethan didn't wait for permission. He went straight to the elevators and rode to the executive floor. Isabella's office door was open. Inside, she was placing items into a cardboard box. A framed photo, some books, a small sculpture that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Her assistant was hovering nearby, looking like she wanted to help but didn't know how. Give us a minute, Ethan said to the assistant. She looked at Isabella, who nodded. The assistant left, closing the door behind her. Isabella didn't look up from her packing. I'm surprised you came. Jennifer called. She's loyal. I'm going to miss that. Isabella, don't. Please don't say you're sorry or that it's not fair or any of the things people say when they don't know what else to say. Ethan watched her pack for a moment. Her movements were mechanical, automatic, like she was going through the motions of something she'd practiced but never expected to perform. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I have no idea. For the first time in 20 years, I genuinely have no idea what comes next." "You could fight this, sue them. The press would have a field day." "I'm not going to fight." Isabella finally looked at him. Her eyes were dry but hollow. "You know what I realized this morning? I don't want to fight anymore. I've been fighting my whole adult life, fighting to build the company, fighting to prove myself, fighting to earn respect from people who were never going to give it. I'm tired, Ethan. I'm so incredibly tired." She placed the last item in the box and looked around the office that had been hers for over a decade. "When my ex-husband told me he was remarrying, I felt like a failure. When the board questioned my decisions, I felt like I had to prove them wrong. But right now, standing here losing everything I built, I feel relieved, and that terrifies me more than anything." "Why does it terrify you?" "Because if I'm relieved to lose this, what was I even fighting for? What did any of it mean?" Ethan moved closer. "It meant you gave 15,000 people jobs. You built something from nothing. You tried to do it the right way, treating people like human beings instead of resources. That matters, even if they couldn't see it." "Does it? Because from where I'm standing, the right way just gets you fired." "Maybe, or maybe the right way just looks different than you thought it would." Isabella picked up the box. "I need to go. They want me out before the market closes." "Let me help you." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. Let me help anyway." They took 3 boxes down to the parking garage in silence. Isabella's car, a sleek black Tesla she rarely drove herself, was parked in her reserved spot. Ethan loaded the boxes into the trunk while she stood nearby, looking lost. "Where are you going to go?" he asked. "Home, I guess. My empty penthouse where I can sit and contemplate what comes next." "That sounds awful." "It really does." Ethan closed the trunk and turned to face her. In the dim light of the garage, she looked younger somehow, vulnerable in a way he'd only seen once before, that night at the hotel. "Don't go home," he said. "What?" "Don't go sit alone in that penthouse. Not today." "What am I supposed to do instead?" "Come with me." Isabella stared at him. "Where?" "I need to pick up Marcus from school in an hour. We usually go to this park in Queens after. Nothing fancy, just swings and a pizza place nearby. Come with us." "Ethan, I don't think—" "You said you don't know what comes next, so stop trying to figure it out for one afternoon. Just exist. Be a person instead of a CEO. Be someone who eats pizza and watches a kid play on swings." "Why would you want me there?" "Because you're my friend," Ethan said simply. "And friends don't let friends sit alone in empty penthouses on the worst day of their lives." Isabella's composure finally cracked. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. "I don't have friends," she whispered. "I have employees and board members and business contacts, but I don't have friends." "You have one now, if you want." She wiped her eyes quickly. "Your son doesn't even know me." "He knows you're the one who sent him the ambulance. Trust me, you're already a hero in his book." Isabella laughed, a broken, desperate sound that was somehow also hopeful. "Okay, yes, pizza and swings. Let's do that." They took Ethan's car because Isabella's Tesla drew too much attention. The drive to Marcus's school was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Isabella sat in the passenger seat, the first time she'd ever ridden up front with him, and watched Queens pass by the window. "It's different here," she said. "Different how?" "More real. Manhattan feels like a stage set sometimes, but this feels like where actual people live actual lives." "That's because it is." They reached the school just as kids started pouring out. Ethan spotted Marcus immediately, running toward the car with his backpack bouncing, his face lighting up when he saw his father. Then Marcus noticed Isabella in the passenger seat and slowed down, suddenly shy. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said, getting out. "This is my friend Isabella. She's going to hang out with us this afternoon." Marcus looked at Isabella with wide eyes. "Are you the ambulance lady?" Isabella smiled, a real smile for the first time all day. "I am." "That's the best present I ever got." "Thank you." "You're very welcome." Marcus climbed into the back seat, still stealing glances at Isabella, like she might disappear if he looked away. They drove to Forest Park, a sprawling green space that Ethan and Marcus visited almost every week. It was nothing like the manicured parks of Manhattan, more wild, less maintained, filled with families and teenagers and people walking dogs. Marcus ran straight for the playground. Isabella and Ethan followed at a slower pace. "This is your regular spot?" Isabella asked. "Every Wednesday if the weather's decent, sometimes Saturdays too." They sat on a bench within view of the playground. Marcus was already climbing the jungle gym, calling for his father to watch. "I see you, buddy," Ethan called back. "Be careful on the top part." Isabella watched this interaction with something like wonder. "You're good at this. Being a parent?" "I'm figuring it out as I go, same as everyone else." "No, you're actually good at it. He feels safe with you, loved. I can see it in the way he looks at you." "I do my best." "Did you always want kids?" Ethan thought about that. "Honestly, no. It wasn't something I planned. Sarah got pregnant unexpectedly. We weren't married yet, barely knew if we wanted to stay together long term. But then Marcus was born, and suddenly none of that mattered. He mattered. Everything else was just details." "Do you regret it? Having him so young?" "Not for a second, even on the hardest days, even when I'm exhausted and broke and have no idea what I'm doing. Not for a second." Isabella was quiet for a long moment, watching Marcus play. "I wanted children once. My ex-husband and I tried for 2 years. It never happened. The doctor said it was unlikely to happen naturally, suggested IVF. "Why didn't you do it?" "Because right around then, the company started taking off. Suddenly I had venture capitalists calling, acquisition offers, opportunities that required 18-hour days. My husband said we should wait. Focus on the business first. There would always be time later." "And?" "There wasn't time later. He left me for someone younger who could give him what I couldn't, or wouldn't. I'm still not sure which." Ethan heard the pain in her voice, the regret that came from choosing one life and losing another. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be. I made my choices, built my empire. It's just that empires are cold comfort at night." Marcus ran over, breathing hard from playing. "Dad, can we get pizza now? I'm starving." "Sure, buddy. Isabella, you hungry?" "I could eat." The pizza place was a tiny hole-in-the-wall called Sal's that had been there since the 70s. Red checkered tablecloths, pictures of Frank Sinatra on the walls, the smell of garlic and oregano thick in the air. Ethan ordered their usual, large pepperoni, and they squeezed into a booth in the back. Marcus was surprisingly comfortable with Isabella, chattering about school and his friends and the science project he was working on. She listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at his jokes. Watching them together, Ethan felt something shift in his chest. This woman who commanded boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals was sitting in a rundown pizza joint in Queens, completely engaged in a 7-year-old's explanation of how caterpillars turn into butterflies. "And then they're in the cocoon for weeks," Marcus explained seriously. "And when they come out, they're totally different, like they're a whole new thing." "That's called metamorphosis," Isabella said. "Metamorphosis," Marcus repeated slowly. "That's a cool word." "It is. It means transformation, becoming something new." Marcus grinned. "I like that." After dinner, they walked back to the park. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus ran ahead, chasing pigeons. "Thank you for this," Isabella said quietly, "for not letting me go home alone." "You don't have to thank me." "I do, because this is the first time in months, maybe years, that I felt like a normal person. Not a CEO, not a failure. Just someone eating pizza and watching the sunset. You're not a failure." "I lost my company." "You lost a job." "That's not the same as losing yourself." Isabella stopped walking. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't. I just say what I'm thinking and hope it doesn't make things worse." She smiled. "It never makes things worse." Marcus came running back, yawning. "Dad, I'm tired." "Okay, buddy. Let's get you home." They drove Isabella back to her car in the Titan Global garage. Marcus was already dozing in the back seat. "Thank you again," Isabella said as she got out. "For everything, for being my friend when I desperately needed one." "Anytime." "I mean it. If you ever need anything—" "I know. Same goes for you." Isabella looked like she wanted to say something else. Instead, she just nodded and walked to her car. Ethan watched her drive away, then looked in the rearview mirror at his sleeping son. "What do you think, Marcus? Did we do good today?" Marcus murmured something unintelligible and shifted position. Ethan smiled and drove home, feeling like maybe, just maybe, he'd done exactly what he was supposed to do. The next morning, Ethan woke to his phone buzzing with notifications. Not texts or calls, news alerts. He grabbed the phone, still groggy, and read the headlines. Titan Global in turmoil, beloved CEO ousted. Isabella Grant removed from company she built. Board coup at tech giant raises questions about corporate governance. Every major business publication had picked up the story. Ethan scrolled through article after article, each one analyzing what had happened, speculating about the reasons, questioning whether the board had made the right call. One article included a quote from an anonymous employee. "She actually cared about us. Not many CEOs do that anymore." Another quoted a former board member. Isabella lost sight of profitability. Business isn't about being nice, it's about returns. Ethan set down his phone and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across the river, Isabella was waking up to this same media storm, probably fielding calls from lawyers and reporters, and people wanting statements. He wanted to text her, check if she was okay. But what would he even say? What comfort could a driver from Queens possibly offer to someone whose entire life had just been dissected by the national press? Marcus shuffled into the room, rubbing his eyes. "Is it Saturday?" "It's Thursday, buddy." "Oh." Marcus climbed onto the bed and curled up next to his father. "I like the pizza lady. Her name is Isabella." "I know, but she bought me the ambulance, so she's the pizza lady now, too." Ethan smiled despite everything. "She'd probably like that title." "Is she sad?" "She seemed sad yesterday. Like when you try to smile but your eyes don't smile." The observation hit harder than it should have. "Yeah, buddy. She's going through some hard stuff right now." "Like when Mom died?" "Different, but hard in its own way." Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing. "You should call her. When I'm sad, it helps when you call me." "You're very wise, you know that?" "Miss Rachel says I'm perceptive." He sounded out the word carefully. "Miss Rachel is right." After dropping Marcus at school, Ethan sat in his car for a long time, staring at his phone. Marcus was right. He should call, or text, or something. Finally, he typed, "Saw the news. How are you holding up?" The response came faster than he expected. Lawyers, reporters, vultures, the usual. "Thank you for yesterday." "I needed normal more than I realized." "Need it again today?" A long pause, then, "Yes, but I don't want to impose. You're not. I have the afternoon shift, but I'm free until 2. Coffee? Where?" "There's a diner in Long Island City. Nothing fancy. Probably no reporters." "Send me the address." The diner was called Ruthie's, and it had been there since 1952, serving coffee that was too strong and pancakes that were too sweet to working-class New Yorkers who didn't care about ambiance. Ethan arrived first and grabbed a booth in the back. Isabella walked in 10 minutes later wearing jeans, a plain sweater, and sunglasses she didn't take off until she sat down. Without her power suits and carefully styled hair, she looked almost unrecognizable. "This is perfect," she said, looking around at the worn vinyl booths and faded photographs on the walls. "No one here has any idea who I am." That was the point. A waitress who looked like she'd been working there since the place opened came over with a pot of coffee. "What'll it be, hun?" "Just coffee for me," Isabella said. "You sure? The blueberry pancakes are good today." Isabella glanced at Ethan, who nodded. "Okay, pancakes." "Make it 2, Ethan added. The waitress shuffled off. Isabella wrapped her hands around the coffee mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "I've gotten 47 calls this morning," she said. "Reporters wanting statements, board members covering their asses, former colleagues suddenly concerned about my well-being. It's amazing how many people care now that I'm no longer useful to them." "You're not answering, are you?" "I turned off my phone. First time in 20 years I've done that. It feels simultaneously liberating and terrifying." "What do the lawyers say?" "That I could fight this, challenge the board's authority, drag it through the courts for years. Probably win, eventually." "But?" Isabella took a sip of coffee and made a face. This is terrible. Welcome to authentic New York. She smiled faintly. But I don't want to fight. I meant what I said yesterday. I'm tired of fighting. And maybe this is the universe telling me it's time to do something different. Like what? I have absolutely no idea. For the first time since I was 22 years old, I have no plan, no 5-year strategy, no quarterly objectives, nothing. The pancakes arrived, drowning in syrup and butter. Isabella stared at hers like it was a foreign object. When's the last time you ate pancakes? Ethan asked. Probably college. They don't exactly fit into my usual diet plan. You don't have a usual diet plan anymore. You have freedom, so eat the damn pancakes. Isabella picked up her fork and took a tentative bite. Her eyes widened slightly. Okay, these are actually really good. Told you. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Around them, the diner hummed with life. Construction workers on break, elderly couples reading newspapers, a mother trying to keep her toddler from throwing Cheerios. Can I ask you something personal? Isabella said. You're buying me pancakes. Ask away. When Sarah died, how did you know what to do next? How did you figure out who you were supposed to be without her? Ethan set down his fork, considering the question. I didn't figure it out, not at first. For months I was just surviving, getting through each day for Marcus's sake, making sure he ate and got to school and had clean clothes. I was on autopilot. What changed? One day I was sitting in the park, the same one we went to yesterday, watching Marcus play, and I realized I'd been so focused on being his father that I'd forgotten I was also just me. Ethan, a person with thoughts and feelings and needs beyond just keeping a 7-year-old alive. What did you do with that realization? Started small, began reading again. Books I actually wanted to read, not just the ones I thought I should read. Started running in the mornings before Marcus woke up. Nothing major, just little things that reminded me I was still a whole person. Isabella nodded slowly. I think I forgot that too, being a whole person. I became the CEO. Every decision, every relationship, every moment was filtered through that identity. And now that it's gone, I don't know what's left. Everything's left. You just have to find it again. How? Ethan finished his coffee. Start with the pancakes. Then we'll figure out the rest. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into an unexpected routine. Ethan would work his shifts, pick up Marcus from school, handle the endless responsibilities of single parenthood. But 2 or 3 times a week, he'd meet Isabella for coffee or lunch or a walk through some random neighborhood she'd never explored. She started showing up to the park on Wednesdays when Ethan and Marcus were there. At first, she just sat on the bench watching, but gradually she got pulled into Marcus's world, helping him build sandcastles, pushing him on the swings, listening to his elaborate stories about superheroes and space adventures. You're good with him, Ethan observed one afternoon while Marcus was occupied with a group of kids playing tag. He's easy to be good with. He's not judgmental. Doesn't care that I used to run a Fortune 500 company or that I got fired. He just cares that I'll play tic-tac-toe with him. Kids are like that. They cut through all the bullshit. Isabella watched Marcus run across the playground, laughing. Do you ever worry about him? About raising him alone? Every single day, I worry I'm not enough. That he needs more than one exhausted parent who's barely keeping it together. That I'm screwing him up in ways I won't understand until he's in therapy at 30. You're not screwing him up. He's happy, secure, loved. That's more than a lot of kids get. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just doing my best and hoping it's enough. Isn't that all any of us can do? Marcus came running over, sweaty and breathless. Isabella, did you see me? I was so fast. I saw. You were lightning. Dad, can Isabella come to dinner again? Please? Ethan looked at Isabella. She'd been to their apartment 3 times now. Each time felt simultaneously natural and surreal. This billionaire sitting on his worn couch, eating takeout from containers, fitting into their small life like she'd always been there. If she wants to, Ethan said. I want to, Isabella said immediately, but only if we're ordering from that Thai place again. Those spring rolls were incredible. Marcus cheered and ran back to the playground. You don't have to keep doing this, Ethan said quietly. Doing what? Hanging out with us. Pretending you're okay with this life when you're used to so much more. Isabella turned to face him fully. I'm not pretending anything. And I'm not hanging out with you because I have nothing better to do. I'm here because this is the first place I've felt like myself in years, maybe ever. We eat takeout and watch kids play on rusty playground equipment. Exactly. It's real. No performance. No networking. No strategic positioning. Just people being people. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Your world is gone now. Good. Maybe I needed to lose that world to find this one. That evening, they ordered Thai food and ate on Ethan's small balcony while Marcus played with his ambulance inside. The summer air was heavy and warm, carrying the sounds of the city, distant sirens, music from someone's radio, the rumble of the subway beneath the street. I got a call today, Isabella said, picking at her pad thai. A headhunter. Wants to put me up for CEO positions at 3 different companies. Ethan's stomach tightened. That was fast. Apparently getting publicly fired from a Fortune 500 company makes you very marketable. Shows you're willing to make hard choices. That you have spine. What did you tell them? That I'd think about it. She set down her fork. But I don't want to think about it. Every time I imagine going back to that life, the boardrooms, the politics, the endless performance, I feel sick. So don't go back. It's not that simple. That's what I'm trained for, what I'm good at. What else would I even do? Anything you want. You're Isabella Grant. You built a company from nothing. You can do whatever you decide to do. Can I? She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Because right now, all I want to do is sit on this balcony with you and eat mediocre Thai food and listen to your son play inside. That doesn't exactly sound like a viable career plan. Why does it need to be a career plan? Why can't it just be a life? Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Inside, Marcus was making siren sounds, apparently responding to some imaginary emergency. Can I tell you something? She said finally. And you promise not to judge me for it? I promise. I'm falling in love with this, with your life, with the smallness and realness of it. And it terrifies me because I don't know if I'm romanticizing something I'll resent in 6 months, or if this is actually what I've been missing all along. Ethan's heart was pounding. And if it's what you've been missing, then I have no idea what to do about it. Because you're right about what you said before. We're from different worlds. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. You're working class, raising a kid alone, driving cars to make ends meet. Those aren't small differences. No, they're not. But they also don't feel as important as they should. When I'm with you, I don't feel like a billionaire, and you don't feel like a driver. We're just 2 people who understand each other. Ethan reached across the small table and took her hand. It was the first time they'd touched like this. Intentionally, intimately. Her skin was soft, her grip uncertain. I don't have answers either, he said, but I know that the last month has been the happiest I've been since Sarah died, and I think a lot of that is because of you. Even though I'm complicated and damaged and don't know how to just be a normal person, especially because of that. Isabella laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made her look years younger. We're a mess, aren't we? Completely. But maybe that's okay. Marcus appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. I'm sleepy. Isabella pulled her hand back quickly. Ethan stood. Okay, buddy, let's get you ready for bed. Can Isabella read me a story? Ethan looked at Isabella, who looked startled. I've never read a bedtime story before. It's easy, Marcus said with the confidence of a 7-year-old. You just read the words and do the voices. The voices? For the characters. Dad does really good voices. I don't know if I can match Dad's voices. That's okay. You can just be you. Something about those words, you can just be you, seemed to hit Isabella hard. She blinked rapidly and nodded. Okay, I can do that. Ethan got Marcus into his pajamas and settled into bed while Isabella stood awkwardly in the doorway of the small bedroom. The space was cluttered with toys and books and drawings taped to the walls. A child's room in every sense. What book do you want? Ethan asked. Marcus pointed to a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. Isabella sat carefully on the edge of the bed and opened the book. She started reading, her voice uncertain at first, then gaining confidence. When she got to the part where Max sails away, she did a small voice for him. Nothing dramatic, just a slight change in pitch. Marcus giggled. That's good. Do the monsters too. By the end of the book, Isabella was fully committed, making growling sounds for the wild things and using different voices for each character. Marcus was delighted. That was the best version ever, he declared when she finished. Better than Dad's? Different, but really good. Isabella smiled and set down the book. Thank you for letting me read to you. You can do it again tomorrow if you want. We'll see. Get some sleep now. She stood to leave, but Marcus grabbed her hand. Isabella, are you going to stay? Stay where? Here, with us. I don't want you to be alone in your big empty house. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back quickly. That's very sweet, but I have my own home. But you're sad there, you're happy here. I can tell. Marcus, Ethan started, but Isabella held up a hand. You're right, she said softly. I am happier here. But sometimes grown-ups have to be in places that don't make them happy because that's where they belong. That's dumb. Marcus, Ethan said more firmly. It's okay, Isabella said. She knelt down next to the bed so she was eye level with Marcus. You know what? You're right. It is dumb. But sometimes adults forget that we're allowed to choose happiness. We get stuck in routines and obligations, and we forget we have a choice. Thank you for reminding me. She kissed his forehead, an unconscious gesture that seemed to surprise her as much as it did Ethan. Then she stood and left the room quickly. Ethan tucked Marcus in, turned on his nightlight, and went to find Isabella. She was on the balcony, gripping the railing, shoulders shaking. Hey, he said softly. You okay? That was the first time I've tucked a child into bed. The first time I've read a bedtime story. I'm 36 years old, and I've never done those things. You did them tonight. And it felt more important than any board meeting I've ever run, than any deal I've ever closed. That 7-year-old boy just gave me more clarity in 5 minutes than 10 therapists have given me in 5 years. Ethan moved to stand beside her. Below them, Queens stretched out in all directions, a patchwork of neighborhoods and lives, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. What did he give you clarity about? Ethan asked. That I've been choosing wrong my whole life, choosing success over happiness, achievement over connection, building things that would outlast me instead of building relationships that would sustain me. It's not too late to choose differently. Isabella turned to look at him. In the dim light from the apartment, her face was soft, vulnerable. What if I choose wrong again? What if I walk away from everything I've built and regret it? What if you don't walk away and regret that instead? I'm scared, Ethan. I've run billion-dollar companies and negotiated with world leaders and spoken to thousands of people, but this terrifies me. What terrifies you? Wanting something this badly, wanting you, wanting this life, wanting to be part of something small and real instead of something big and hollow. Ethan's breath caught. They were standing very close now, close enough that he could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the hope fighting with fear. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I want you here too, not because of what you've accomplished or who you used to be, just because of who you are. The woman who reads bedtime stories and eats bad pancakes and sits on playground benches like she's discovering the world for the first time. What about Marcus? What about your life? I'd be disrupting everything. You wouldn't be disrupting anything. You'd be adding to it. You make it sound simple. It is simple. We complicate it because we think it should be complicated. But Marcus already figured it out. Stay where you're happy. Choose the people who make you feel like yourself. Isabella reached up and touched his face, a tentative gesture like she was testing whether this was real. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be with someone without it being a negotiation or a transaction. Then we'll figure it out together. No negotiations, no transactions. Just two people who want to be around each other. She stood on her toes and kissed him. It was soft, uncertain, nothing like Ethan would have expected from someone who'd spent her life being decisive. It was the kiss of someone learning how to be vulnerable. When they pulled apart, Isabella was crying. I'm sorry, she said, wiping her eyes. I don't know why I'm crying. Because it's overwhelming. Because it's real. Because for the first time in a long time, you're letting yourself want something. Is it okay to want this? To want you? Yes, it's more than okay. They stood on that small balcony for a long time, holding each other while the city hummed around them. Inside, Marcus slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 7-year-olds dream about. And for the first time in months, maybe years, both Ethan and Isabella felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be. 3 days later, Isabella made her decision. She called Ethan while he was on a drive. "Can you come over tonight after Marcus goes to bed? I need to tell you something." The tone of her voice made his stomach drop. "Is everything okay?" "I don't know yet. Just come, please." He arranged for the babysitter and took the subway to Hudson Yards, his mind racing through every possible scenario. She was leaving. She'd changed her mind. She'd realized this was a mistake. Isabella answered her penthouse door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun. "You look terrified," she said. "I am terrified. You sounded serious." "I am serious. Come in." "But..." The penthouse looked different than the first time he'd been here. Less sterile. There were books scattered on the coffee table, dishes in the sink, shoes by the door. Signs of actual life. "I made a decision today," Isabella said, standing in the middle of her living room like she was about to give a presentation. "Several decisions, actually." "Okay." "I'm selling this place. It's too big and too empty, and it's never felt like home. I'm going to buy something smaller, something I actually want to live in, not something that makes a statement." Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "That's good. I'm also turning down the CEO positions, all of them." "What are you going to do instead?" "I don't know yet, but I have enough money to take time figuring it out. Maybe I'll start a nonprofit, or consult with small businesses, or just volunteer at schools. I haven't decided, but I'm done with the corporate world. I'm done sacrificing my life for other people's profits." "Isabella, I'm not finished." She took a breath. "I want to be with you. Officially. Not sneaking around or pretending this is just friendship. I want to date you, be your girlfriend, whatever terminology makes sense. I want to be part of your life and Marcus's life if you'll have me." Ethan stared at her. "Are you sure? Because once we do this, once we make it real, there's no going back. People will talk. They'll judge. They'll say you're slumming it or I'm a gold digger. It won't be easy." "Nothing worth having is easy. You taught me that." "I didn't teach you anything. You taught me everything." Isabella moved closer. "You taught me that kindness matters more than power, that small moments mean more than big achievements, that being seen for who you really are is more valuable than being admired for who people think you are. Isabella, I'm in love with you, Ethan. I'm in love with your son. I'm in love with your tiny apartment and your worn couch and your Wednesday park routine. I'm in love with the life you've built from nothing, with more heart than I ever put into building my empire. And I want to be part of it, if you'll let me." Ethan crossed the space between them and pulled her close. "Yes. Yes, I'll let you. Yes to all of it." They kissed, and this time there was no uncertainty, just certainty. Just two people choosing each other despite every logical reason not to. "There's one more thing," Isabella said when they finally pulled apart. "What?" "I want to meet Marcus's teacher and his friends' parents. I want to do the school pickup sometimes. I want to be a real part of his life, not just the lady who shows up occasionally." "He'd love that. He already loves you." "How do you know?" "Because he asked me if you could be his mom." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that's not something we rush, but that you care about him very much, and that we'd see what happens." "And what do you think will happen?" Ethan smiled. "I think you're going to be the best thing that ever happened to both of us. No pressure. None at all." They spent the rest of the evening talking about logistics, about how they'd tell people, about how slowly they'd move for Marcus's sake, about what the future might look like. It wasn't glamorous or dramatic. It was two people planning a life together with the same care most people plan a grocery list. And somehow, that made it perfect. The following Monday, Ethan woke to his phone buzzing insistently. He grabbed it, squinting at the screen through the early morning light filtering through his bedroom window. 17 missed calls, 34 text messages, all in the last hour. His stomach dropped. The first text was from Dave. "Bro, you seeing this?" The second was from Jennifer Park. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened." The third was from a number he didn't recognize. "Hope she was worth losing everything, asshole." Ethan sat up, his heart pounding. He opened his news app and saw the headline immediately. Disgraced CEO's secret romance, Isabella Grant dating her former driver. Below it was a photograph. Him and Isabella on his balcony 3 nights ago, kissing. Someone had taken it from a building across the street, grainy but unmistakable. The article was brutal. It called their relationship inappropriate, suggested Isabella had been involved with Ethan even while she was CEO, implied he'd manipulated her during a vulnerable time, used words like scandal and shocking and inappropriate power dynamics. Every fear Ethan had harbored about going public was coming true, except they hadn't even gone public yet. Someone had done it for them. Marcus appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas. "Dad? Why are you making that face?" Ethan forced his expression neutral and set down his phone. "Just work stuff, buddy. Nothing to worry about. Is Isabella coming over today?" "I don't know yet. We'll see." His phone rang. Isabella. "I saw it," she said without preamble. Her voice was tight, controlled. "Don't read the comments. Don't engage with any of it. I'm handling it." "How did they even get that photo?" "Someone was watching. Someone is always watching. I should have been more careful." "This isn't your fault." "It absolutely is my fault. I knew what going public would mean, and I did it anyway. I put you at risk. I put Marcus at risk." "Isabella, stop. I need to go. My lawyer is calling. I'll call you back." She hung up before he could respond. The day got worse from there. When Ethan dropped Marcus at school, he noticed the other parents staring, whispering. One mother he'd chatted with dozens of times suddenly became very interested in her phone when he approached. "Morning, Sarah," he said anyway. She looked up, smiled tightly. "Morning." That was it. No small talk about the kids, no complaints about homework, just that strained, awkward smile that told him she'd seen the article. At work, the atmosphere was even more toxic. Ethan walked into the garage and the conversation among the other drivers immediately stopped. Dave pulled him aside. "HR wants to see you, again." "Of course they do. Look, man, I'm not judging, but this is messy, really messy. We didn't do anything wrong. I believe you. But you know how this works. Optics." That word again, optics. Ethan went to HR feeling like he was walking to an execution. Karen Chen sat across from him with the same professionally neutral expression she'd worn during the first investigation. But this time, there was something else in her eyes. Pity, maybe, or disgust. "Mr. Brooks, I'm sure you've seen the news." "Hard to miss. The company is in a difficult position. We can't be associated with this kind of publicity. It reflects poorly on our workplace culture and creates liability issues." "What are you saying?" "We're terminating your employment effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance pay and your remaining vacation time. Your benefits will continue through the end of the month." The words didn't make sense at first. Terminating. Fired. For what? "I didn't break any rules," Ethan said. "She's not my boss anymore. She's not even employed here anymore. We're two private citizens in a relationship. The relationship began while she was still CEO and you were still her employee, according to the timeline in the article. The relationship began after she was fired. The article is speculating. The photograph suggests otherwise. The photograph is from 3 days ago. 3 days. You can't fire me based on tabloid speculation." Karen's expression didn't change. "We can terminate employment for any reason in accordance with New York labor law, as long as it's not discriminatory. Your relationship with Ms. Grant creates a perception of impropriety that the company cannot tolerate." Perception. Not reality. Perception. "I understand your frustration, but the decision is final. Please surrender your badge and any company property before you leave." Ethan walked out of that building for the second time in 3 months, feeling like the ground had been pulled out from under him. Except this time it wasn't a suspension. This time it was permanent. He sat in his car in the parking garage, the same garage where this had all started 8 months ago, and tried to figure out how to tell Marcus they'd have to move. How to explain that helping someone, falling for someone, had cost them everything. His phone rang. Isabella again. "They fired you, didn't they?" she said immediately. "How did you know?" "Because they're predictable. Because they're covering their asses. Because I should have seen this coming." Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Ethan. This is all my fault. Stop apologizing. We made choices together. Choices that are destroying your life. You have a son to support, bills to pay, and because of me, you just lost your income. I'll find another job. Not in this city, not after this story. Every potential employer will Google your name and see that article. See the speculation. You'll be unhireable. She was right. Ethan knew she was right. In the age of social media and instant information, reputation was everything, and his had just been shredded. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. Walk away? Pretend this never happened? Protect myself and leave you to deal with the fallout alone? Yes, exactly that. I'm not doing that. Ethan, I told you I was all in. That doesn't change because things got hard. If anything, this is when it matters most. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't deserve you. You deserve someone who stays, so I'm staying. Even if it costs you everything? You are everything. You and Marcus. The rest is just noise. He heard her crying on the other end. Not the controlled, quiet tears he'd seen before. Deep, wrenching sobs. Where are you? He asked. My penthouse. Hiding like a coward while the world tears us apart. Stay there. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Lock the door. Don't talk to anyone. I'll be there in 40 minutes. The subway ride to Hudson Yards felt endless. Ethan kept his head down, avoiding eye contact with other passengers. Every time someone looked at their phone, he wondered if they were reading about him, judging him, hating him. When he finally reached Isabella's building, there were photographers outside. 3 of them, cameras ready, waiting like vultures. They started shouting questions the moment they recognized him. Ethan, how long have you been sleeping with Isabella Grant? Did you pursue her while she was still your boss? Is it true you're after her money? Ethan pushed past them without responding and went through the service entrance Jennifer had told him about once. The building security recognized him and waved him through. Isabella opened her penthouse door before he could knock. She looked terrible, eyes red and swollen, still in the same clothes from yesterday, hair uncombed. He pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. I'm ruining your life, she said into his chest. You're the best thing that ever happened to my life. The press is calling you a gold digger, saying you manipulated me, that you're using me for money and status. I don't care what they say. Your son's school saw the article. They're going to ask questions. Kids are going to say things. He's going to be hurt because of this. That hit harder. Marcus. The one person Ethan would do anything to protect. Then we'll deal with it, he said. Together. Isabella pulled back to look at him. How are you so calm? I'm not calm. I'm terrified. But falling apart doesn't help anyone. We need to figure out our next move. What next move? We're being crucified in the press. You lost your job. I'm unemployable. We have no moves left. Ethan guided her to the couch and sat down. Yes, we do. We tell the truth, the whole truth, not through lawyers or PR people or carefully worded statements. Just us, talking about what actually happened. No one will believe us. Maybe not, but at least we'll have said it. At least we'll have tried. Isabella shook her head. You're thinking like someone who still has faith in people. I've been in the corporate world too long. People don't care about truth. They care about narrative. And right now the narrative is that we're a scandal. Then we change the narrative. How? Ethan pulled out his phone. We do an interview. A real one. Camera, questions, everything. We sit down and tell our story from the beginning. No spin. No PR coaching. Just honesty. That's insane. Probably, but it's the only move we have left. Isabella stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. But the alternative was sitting in this penthouse watching their lives get destroyed by people who knew nothing about them. Who would even interview us? She asked. I don't know, but there has to be someone credible. Someone who'll ask real questions and let us give real answers. And you think that'll fix this? I think it's better than doing nothing. Isabella was quiet for a long time, processing. Finally, she nodded. Okay, let's do it. Let's tell the truth and hope it matters. It took 2 days to arrange. Jennifer made calls, reached out to contacts, and finally found a journalist willing to do it. Catherine Morrison, a veteran reporter known for fair, balanced coverage. She'd broken major stories but never relied on sensationalism. The interview was scheduled for Thursday evening at a neutral location, a small studio in Midtown. No live audience, just Catherine, a camera operator, and the truth. Ethan spent those 2 days preparing Marcus. Buddy, we need to talk about something important. Marcus looked up from his homework. Is this about Isabella? Yes. How did you know? Tyler's mom asked me questions about her at school, like if she sleeps over and stuff. I told her that's none of her business. Ethan's heart ached. You shouldn't have to deal with that. It's okay. Tyler's mom is nosy anyway. Here's the thing. Some people are saying mean things about me and Isabella, things that aren't true. We're going to go on TV and tell everyone what really happened, but it might make things harder for a little while. What kind of things? People might ask you questions. Kids might say stuff. It could be uncomfortable. Marcus thought about this seriously. Are you and Isabella going to break up? No, we're going to stay together. But I need to know if you're okay with that. If you're okay with her being part of our lives even when it's hard. I like Isabella. She reads good bedtime stories, and she laughs at my jokes. Why would I not be okay with that? Because some people think we shouldn't be together, that we're too different. Marcus frowned. That's dumb. You make each other happy. That's what matters. Again, the clarity of children. The ability to cut through all the complexity and see what actually mattered. You're absolutely right, Ethan said. That is what matters. Thursday evening arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. Ethan and Isabella met at the studio at 6 p.m. Catherine Morrison was exactly what Ethan had hoped for. Professional, but warm, direct, but not aggressive. She shook both their hands and led them to a small set with 3 chairs arranged in a triangle. We'll go live at 7, she explained. I'll ask questions. You answer honestly. If anything gets too uncomfortable, we can pause. But I think the more authentic this is, the better. No filter? Isabella asked. No filter. That's the point. They had 30 minutes before going live. Ethan and Isabella sat in makeup chairs while someone dabbed powder on their faces and adjusted their clothing. It all felt surreal, like they were preparing for a performance when all they were really doing was talking. You okay? Ethan asked Isabella. Terrified. You? Same. She reached over and took his hand. Thank you. For doing this, for not running when things got hard. Where would I run to? Everything I care about is right here. At 7 p.m. exactly, they went live. Catherine started with the basics. How they met, the night of the gala, what actually happened. Ethan told the story simply and honestly. The sick CEO, the request to stay, the choice to help someone who needed it. There was nothing romantic that night, he said clearly. I slept in a guest room. I left in the morning, that's all. But the photograph from the hotel elevator looks intimate, Catherine said. It looks like someone helping another person who couldn't stand on their own. Context matters. Catherine turned to Isabella. You were going through a difficult time personally. Some have suggested Mr. Brooks took advantage of that vulnerability. Isabella's response was immediate and firm. Ethan Brooks is the most honorable man I've ever met. He had every opportunity to take advantage of me that night, and he didn't. He treated me with dignity and respect when I desperately needed both. Anyone suggesting otherwise doesn't know him. When did your relationship become romantic? Months later, after I was fired. After we'd spent time together as friends. After we realized we had something real. But you were still technically his boss when you first met. I was his boss the night he helped me, but by the time our relationship became romantic, I had no authority over him whatsoever. We were equals. Catherine looked at Ethan. You lost your job because of this relationship. Do you regret it? Ethan thought about the question, really thought about it. I regret that good intentions got twisted into something ugly. I regret that people assumed the worst instead of giving us the benefit of the doubt. But do I regret being with Isabella? No, not for a second. Even though it cost you your career? I was a driver. I can be a driver somewhere else, or I can do something completely different. Jobs change, but finding someone who sees you for who you really are, who accepts you completely, that's rare. That's worth protecting. Catherine turned back to Isabella. You've been called many things in the last week. Gold digger target, cougar, woman who threw away her career for a fling. How do you respond to that? Isabella's voice was steady when she answered. I respond by saying people are desperate to put us in boxes they understand. Rich CEO and poor driver must be a scandal, must be inappropriate, must be wrong. Because the alternative, that two people from different circumstances genuinely connected, that's too simple, too boring, not sensational enough. But you have to admit, the optics are complicated. But the optics are only complicated if you think money and status matter more than character. I've dated wealthy men, powerful men who looked perfect on paper, and every single one of them saw me as a trophy or a target or a transaction. Ethan sees me as a person, as someone worth knowing beyond the Forbes covers and the company titles. That's not complicated. That's actually really simple. Catherine let that sit for a moment before asking her next question. Mr. Brooks, you have a son. How has he reacted to all of this? Ethan smiled. Marcus is 7. He doesn't understand the controversy. He just knows that Isabella makes us both happy. She reads him bedtime stories and plays with him at the park and treats him like he matters. To him, that's all that counts. Have you considered how this media attention might affect him? Every single day. It kills me that he might face questions or bullying because of choices I made. But I also want him to grow up seeing that you don't abandon people you love when things get hard. That integrity means staying even when it costs you something. Catherine turned to address the camera directly. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we'll take questions from viewers who've submitted them online. The camera light went off. Someone rushed over to check their microphones. You're doing great, Catherine said. Both of you, just keep being this honest. When they came back from break, Catherine pulled up questions on a tablet. This one is from Sarah in Boston. She asks, if you could go back to that night at the gala, would you do anything differently? Ethan and Isabella looked at each other. No, they said simultaneously. Isabella continued, that night was the beginning of everything. All the good and all the hard. I wouldn't change it. Even knowing what you know now, the scandal, the job loss, the public scrutiny, even knowing all of that. Because the alternative is living a safe, hollow life where I never took a risk, where I never let anyone see the real me. I did that for 36 years. I'm done. Another question. This is from Marcus in Phoenix, ironically, same name as your son, who asks, what do you say to people who think you're just in this relationship for the money? Ethan laughed. I say they've never met Isabella. She's brilliant and funny and kind and completely terrible at playing video games with my son. She drinks her coffee too hot and cries at animated movies and gets genuinely excited about finding a good parking spot. Those aren't things you fake. That's just who she is. The money is irrelevant. Is it, though? You went from dating someone who could barely make rent to dating a billionaire. That's not a small change. You're right, it's not small. But here's what people don't understand. Being with someone wealthy is actually harder, not easier. Every interaction gets scrutinized. Every choice gets judged. People assume I'm using her, that I couldn't possibly love her for who she is. It would be a lot easier to date someone at my own income level, a lot less complicated. But I don't want easy. I want her. The questions continued for another 20 minutes. Some were hostile, some were genuinely curious. Catherine asked all of them without judgment, letting Ethan and Isabella respond in their own words. Finally, Catherine asked her last question. If you could say one thing to everyone watching, what would it be? Isabella spoke first. I'd say that we judge people so quickly based on superficial things, what they earn, what they wear, where they live. But none of that tells you who someone really is. Ethan is the kindest, most genuine person I've ever met. He helped me when he had nothing to gain and everything to lose. That's character. That's what actually matters. If people can't see that because they're too focused on our tax brackets, that's their loss, not ours. Ethan added, I'd say that love isn't always convenient or easy or Instagram perfect. Sometimes it's messy and complicated and people don't understand it, but that doesn't make it less real. Isabella and I choose each other every day despite all the reasons we shouldn't. And we're going to keep choosing each other no matter what anyone says. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones living this life, not the tabloids, not the internet, us. Catherine smiled. Thank you both for your honesty. I think a lot of people needed to hear this. The camera light went off. The interview was over. Ethan and Isabella sat there for a moment, stunned that it was done. They'd told their truth. Now all they could do was wait to see if anyone believed them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour of the interview airing, social media exploded. But this time the tide had shifted. I believe them. That was the most honest interview I've seen in years. Anyone who thinks this is fake needs to watch how they look at each other. That's real. I've been judging this situation all wrong. Thank you for telling your story. Not everyone was convinced. There were still critics, still people who insisted it was all a performance. But the overwhelming majority of responses were positive, supportive, understanding. By the next morning, major outlets were running stories with headlines like, "The real story behind the CEO and the driver, and why we should stop judging Isabella Grant's relationship." Ethan's phone rang at 8 a.m., a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Brooks? This is David Chen from the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I saw your interview last night. We have an opening for a senior driver position with better pay and benefits than your previous job. Would you be interested in discussing it?" Ethan almost dropped the phone. Yes, absolutely. Great. Can you come in for an interview Monday?" "I'll be there." 3 more job offers came that day. 2 driving positions and 1 from a nonprofit that worked with single parents, offering him a role in their outreach program. Isabella received calls too, not for CEO positions, but for board seats at companies that valued her perspective. Speaking engagements, consulting opportunities, chances to use her experience without the politics she'd grown to hate. But the most important call came from Marcus's school. The principal wanted to meet with Ethan. He showed up prepared for the worst, ready to defend his choices to protect his son from judgment. Instead, the principal shook his hand warmly. "Mr. Brooks, I wanted to apologize. Some parents expressed concerns after the initial news broke. But after your interview last night, the tone completely changed. We've received numerous messages of support, parents saying they admire your integrity, your honesty, the way you're teaching Marcus about standing by your principles." Ethan felt tension he didn't know he was carrying finally release. "Thank you. That means more than you know. Marcus is a wonderful boy. You're doing an excellent job raising him. Don't let anyone make you question that." That weekend, Isabella officially moved out of her penthouse. Not into Ethan's 1-bedroom apartment, that would have been too cramped, but into a modest 3-bedroom townhouse in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Close enough to Marcus's school, affordable enough to feel normal, big enough for all of them. Ethan and Marcus helped her move in. It was strange seeing Isabella's expensive furniture in a regular neighborhood, her designer clothes hanging in a normal closet. But she looked happier than Ethan had ever seen her. "This is perfect," she said, standing in the middle of her new living room. "Actually perfect." "It's a fraction of the size of your penthouse," Ethan pointed out. "Exactly. The penthouse was a monument to success. This is a home. There's a difference." But Marcus was exploring the backyard, a small patch of grass with an old swing set left by the previous owner. "Can I use the swings?" he called. "Of course," Isabella called back. They watched him through the kitchen window, pumping his legs to go higher. "I have something to tell you," Isabella said. Ethan turned to her. "Good something or bad something?" "Good, I think. I've been offered a position on the board of a foundation that provides educational resources to underprivileged kids. It's not paid, but the work is meaningful. I'd basically be helping kids like Marcus get access to better opportunities." "That sounds perfect for you." "I also got offered a book deal. They want me to write about my experience building Titan Global and then losing it, about what I learned, about choosing a different kind of success." "Are you going to do it?" "I think so. If I can figure out how to write honestly about the parts that hurt." Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You'll figure it out. You always do." They stood like that for a while, watching Marcus play, feeling the weight of the last few months finally lifting. "Do you ever regret it?" Isabella asked quietly. "Any of it?" "Not once." "You?" "Not even a little." That night, they had dinner together in Isabella's new home. Pizza from Sal's, Marcus's request, eaten at a table that didn't cost a fortune, in a house that felt lived in rather than curated. After Marcus went to bed in his new room, Ethan and Isabella sat on the back porch, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling in for the night. "I've been thinking," Isabella said, about the future, what we want, where we're going. And what do you want?" She turned to face him. "I want this, every day. I want to wake up next to you, help Marcus with his homework, argue about whose turn it is to do dishes. Build a life that's small and real and ours." "Now that sounds pretty good to me too. There's more." She took a breath. "I want to marry you. Eventually. Not right now. We should take our time, do this right for Marcus's sake. But someday, I want to be your wife, your partner, Marcus's stepmother. I want all of it." Ethan's heart was pounding. "Are you proposing to me?" "I'm declaring my intentions. Is that allowed?" "It's more than allowed." And he kissed her, long and slow, with the certainty of someone who'd finally found exactly where they belonged. "For the record," he said when they pulled apart, "my intentions are the same. Someday soon, I'm going to ask you properly. With a ring and everything." "I don't need a ring." "I know, but you're getting one anyway." Isabella laughed. "You're impossible." "You love it." "I really do." They sat there for hours talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the future, sharing dreams they'd never told anyone else, building something that had nothing to do with money or power or status, building something real. 6 months later, on a cold December afternoon, Ethan took Isabella back to Forest Park, to the bench where they'd sat that first time she'd come to Queens, where Marcus had played while they'd talked about life and loss and starting over. Marcus was there too, bouncing with barely contained excitement. "Can I tell her now, Dad?" "Not yet, buddy. Wait for the signal." Isabella looked between them suspiciously. "What are you two planning?" "Nothing," they said in unison, terribly unconvincing. Ethan led her to the bench and they sat down. The park was quieter in winter, fewer families, the playground mostly empty. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" Ethan asked. "Of course. It was the day I got fired. You bought me pizza and let me exist without being a CEO for the first time in years. You were so lost that day, so uncertain about what came next." "I was terrified, but you made me feel like maybe it would be okay." "Was it okay, I mean?" Isabella smiled. "It was better than okay. It was everything." Ethan stood and got down on one knee. Isabella's hands flew to her mouth. "Ethan, Isabella Grant, you crashed into my life on the worst night of yours. You changed everything, made me believe that good things could happen even when they seemed impossible. You love my son like he's your own. You make me want to be better every single day. And I don't want to spend another minute of my life not being married to you." He pulled out a ring, nothing extravagant, a simple band with a small diamond, but chosen with care. "Will you marry me?" Isabella was crying, nodding before she could speak. "Yes. Yes, absolutely yes." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms while Marcus cheered from his hiding spot behind a tree. "I knew it! I knew you were going to ask her!" He ran over and crashed into both of them, wrapping his arms around their legs. "You helped pick the ring, buddy. You can't act surprised." "I can be excited, though." They stood there in the middle of the park, the three of them wrapped together, and Ethan thought about how far they'd all come. From that snowy night in February to this moment. From strangers to family. The wedding was small and perfect. Just close friends, Marcus as the ring bearer, Jennifer as Isabella's maid of honor. They got married in a community garden in Brooklyn on a warm spring afternoon with 75 people who actually mattered to them watching. No press, no photographers, no spectacle. Just two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way possible, promising to keep choosing each other for the rest of their lives. During his vows, Ethan said, "You taught me that the right choice isn't always the easy one, that integrity matters more than comfort, that love is worth fighting for even when the whole world tells you to walk away. I promise to stay, always." During hers, Isabella said, "You saw me when I was invisible to myself. You showed me that success isn't measured in dollars or power, but in moments of genuine connection, in quiet acts of kindness, in building a life that means something. I promise to honor that, to choose us, every single day." Marcus, standing between them, whispered loudly, Can you kiss now? This part is taking forever." Everyone laughed. Ethan and Isabella kissed while their son, looked on with satisfaction. The reception was held at Sal's Pizza, the entire restaurant rented out for the evening. They ate pizza and danced to music from someone's iPhone playlist and celebrated something that had started as a scandal and become the truest thing in both their lives. Late in the evening, after most of the guests had left, Ethan found Isabella standing outside looking up at the Brooklyn sky. "Hiding from your own wedding?" he asked. "Just taking a moment, trying to remember every detail." "Happy?" "Deliriously. You?" "More than I thought possible." She leaned against him. "Do you ever think about that night? If I'd taken a different car? If someone else had helped me? How different everything would be." "All the time. But I also think we were always going to find each other somehow. Maybe not that night. Maybe not that way. But eventually." "You really believe that?" "I believe that some people are meant to cross paths, and I believe that what we do when those paths cross is what matters. We could have played it safe, stayed in our separate worlds, but we didn't. We chose each other, and that choice changed everything." Isabella smiled. "The driver and the CEO. The man and the woman. The rest is just noise." Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Dad! Isabella! They're cutting the cake and you're supposed to be there." "We're coming, buddy," Ethan called, but they stood there for one more moment, holding each other under the Brooklyn sky, surrounded by the sounds of the city that had brought them together. Two people from different worlds who'd built a bridge between them. Two lonely souls who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to stay. Two lives that had intersected in the most unlikely way and created something neither of them could have imagined. They'd lost jobs and reputations, faced judgment and scrutiny, weathered storms that should have destroyed them. But they'd also found something that most people spend their whole lives searching for: connection, understanding, love that wasn't transactional or conditional, just real. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Ethan Brooks, the driver from Queens who'd done one kind thing on one cold night, had gained everything that truly counted. And Isabella Grant, the billionaire CEO who'd lost her empire, had discovered that the richest life had nothing to do with money at all. It had to do with choosing the right person, building the right life, staying when things got hard. It had to do with quiet moments on balconies and bedtime stories and pizza from hole-in-the-wall restaurants. It had to do with seeing someone for who they really were and loving them anyway. Especially loving them anyway. Hand in hand, they walked back inside to cut their cake, surrounded by the people who'd believed in them even when the world hadn't, ready to begin the next chapter of a story that had started with a single act of kindness and grown into something extraordinary. Because that's how the best love stories work. Not with grand gestures or perfect timing, but with small choices made over and over again. With courage and vulnerability and the willingness to risk everything for something real. With staying when it would be easier to leave. With choosing each other every single day.